Hello, my oodles and noodles. We are back for another episode of Geek Tales because I want to do one. And today is going to be a fun day. We are going to talk about something I love to a degree that very little in this world can compare to, and that is films by Studio Ghibli. And I wanted to talk about Princess Mononoke today. Princess Mononoke it's just, can we call it a masterpiece? It is a masterpiece. There's no other way to describe this film. And as a sort of celebration of the fact that Netflix finally has the entire catalog, or almost the entire catalog, of Studio Ghibli's films, I wanted to do a sort of gushing review of Princess Mononoke. There is going to be some criticism. A lot of people sort of give most Ghibli works a sort of free pass, but as much as I love Mononoke, it does have some things that kind of stick. They don't really mesh well, and there's some development that could have been improved upon, but even those criticisms really have more to do with the fact that the film is quite short. The duration doesn't really stretch out long enough to really develop certain people as much as they could have been. And other things are sort of trivial and much more of a preference. And I'm a picky bastard sometimes. So let us begin. Princess Mononoke, of course, is one of the older films in the, we shall say, series of films that Studio Ghibli has produced. And yet the art quality has not, comparatively to most animated shows and films these days, it is still leaps and bounds better in the visual department. I don't think you can really have a criticism of the artwork of Ghibli in any of their films. The color schemes, the palettes, the backdrops, especially near the beginning of the film, when we are introduced to our protagonist, Ashitaka, just the vibrancy even of his own home, which is such a small, simple place, but it is just gorgeously rendered. And when we start to see in the later parts of the film places such as where the mining town is and where our protagonists are sort of interacting and showing off nature versus the progression of, I suppose we could call it the steam time era. Basically, lots of mining, lots of guns, and you can really see that offsetting of color between the beauty and the lushness of nature, the greens, the blues, the yellows, the oranges, and then you just have this dark, shadowy, which is the mining town and anywhere that humans are living. And Ashitaka's home, where we begin the film, is really just sort of still pristine, still beautiful. It's humans living in harmony with nature. And you can really, really think of that as the main focal point of the entire film. It is how humans, obviously to a degree, lived in harmony, worked alongside harmony, were symbiotic with, I've been saying with harmony, with nature, have been symbiotically living alongside nature for so many generations. And now as technology is advancing, as things progress, we are seeing this conflict as humans become much more hyper-focused on their own development, which can lead to some positive things for humans, but unfortunately is really destructive towards nature. And regardless of anything, we are a part of nature. And so that is a really important question and philosophical, just overall picture to look at, because we need to understand how much this can damage us as well. And that's really what the film is trying to get at, is there's no black and white, this is good, this is bad. It is really just this zone of gray where we are trying to figure out how can we make this work, that where one side or another can work together, can harmonize. And Ashitaka, our main protagonist, is honestly my favorite male character in any anime series. There's overpowered characters in other anime series that are really cool. There are some philosophical ones. There are some very intelligent characters in other anime series, but really Ashitaka is this strong, resolute, disciplined person who has his beliefs, is open-minded, and he doesn't stray from the path of what he's thinking. Even if he's not sure about something, he still stands up for himself and for others, regardless of whose side he's trying to be on, and he kind of flip-flops sides. So we have two main central sides to this story, which is Lady Eboshi and Princess Mononoke, who is sort of our main heroine, as we can say. But unfortunately, that is probably going to be my first sort of criticism of the film, because it's kind of foolish, but I understand Studio Ghibli, generally speaking, only has female protagonists in their films. They're generally coming of age stories, so maybe that's why they call this film Princess Mononoke. But the film has barely anything to do with Princess Mononoke. She's just a stand-in for the animals, which didn't really need a stand-in, because that was the whole point. It was supposed to be. I mean, we have sentient spirits in this film. We have wolves who can speak. We have boars who can speak. They are talking and are quite capable of communication. Now, there's some people might say that only San, who is Princess Mononoke, can communicate with the animals, but I do believe that they can communicate as well with other humans. And so, did we need San? Nah. It's just they wanted to have some kind of love interest for Ashitaka, even though thankfully that wasn't fully developed. It was sort of a crush and interest. But again, it sort of makes it that the film shouldn't really have been called Princess Mononoke. It's me nitpicking, and I think it's sort of the trauma of so many Zelda games, which are 99% Link, but for some reason called Zelda, and it's just been driving me nuts ever since I was a young boy. So if we just get past that irritation, there is still really interesting dynamics happening. And as I said before, everything is sort of in the gray. There's no good person, there's no bad person. There are people who are unfortunately less likable. So Lady Eboshi, who is, you could think is our main antagonist, but I mean, she has her good points. There's a lot of things in her push to develop the mining town and really help the people around her. She brings in people who usually would be disparate souls, who would be people who fall through the cracks of society. You have prostitutes and lepers and poor people, and she's trying to give them hope, and she's building this town, and she shows kindness and respect to all people who are there. She also, though, has a very cruel, uncaring side to everybody who is outside. She is politically maneuvering herself to basically dominate the region and become a power, and all she cares about is having that power so that her people can win. She doesn't care about anything else, so she's willing to kill off the entire forest and even kill the forest god just because she wants her people to succeed. She doesn't care about anything else. And it is understandable. You understand where she's coming from because she has so many people who are reliant on her. And yet at the same time, because of that, and because we are sort of viewing everything through Ashitaka's eyes, and Ashitaka is really interesting because he's always neutral. He sort of takes sides every once in a while. He flip-flops back and forth, and you could see he sort of leans towards nature and helping the forest spirits. And of course, he has this little interest in San, Princess Mononoke. But at the same time, he gets to know the people who are living with Lady Eboshi, and he cares about them. He likes them. He sees that they're good people, and so he doesn't try to harm them either. He's really just trying to find this balance, a balance that he himself has lost in a certain sense, because he, if you see at the beginning of the film, he had to leave his home because he was cursed by this crazy boar who had become a demon after being infected and poisoned by a bullet actually shot by the people alongside Lady Eboshi. I can't remember if it's actually Lady Eboshi herself who shot him or just one of the people who happened to shoot him. And so Ashitaka is going to die. He's going to be overwhelmed by this curse, and yet he is trying to control it. He's trying to be a proper outside observer, a neutral party that can try to bring the two peoples together. peoples, animals, and people. San, one person. Bit of a complicated little thing there. Anyway, so what I'm trying to say is you should watch this film because it is a philosophical adventure of what it means to be human, really, what it means to advance as the human species, what it means to be able, and this is truthful in a way, use technology to take care of all the people who normally in the past, unfortunately, we would have just killed or left behind. You know, we did not, in general, for most of human history, take care of our sick and our elderly. In some small tribes and whatnot, we did, but as soon as we started building up like a certain population level, we generally didn't. It was too much of a problem, and even if we wanted to, most of the time, we just couldn't until we got sufficiently advanced enough technologically that we had the medicine and the free time to really start taking care of people who were sick. So lepers and you know, nobody gave a shit about prostitutes for most of human history. They were very much like not well taken care of. Not to say that we don't have issues, obviously, in modern society, especially in regards to those kinds of things, but things have improved tremendously over the years because of technology and all this progression. But yet we've also lost so much of the kind of, we could say, the spiritual aspects that we get from our connection with nature and animals and the other creatures that are living. You could even say that as we've become a much more monotheistic religious people throughout the world, we lost a lot of that beauty and complexity that came along with paganism and all the different kinds of gods and goddesses and spirits, depending on, you know, where you came from and what kind of religion you believed in. And so there's a lot of that complexity within the film, and it never lets you just sit on your laurels and start taking one side or the other. Although personally, I do find it difficult not to lean towards the nature side, just because the animals weren't really doing anything towards humans. Yeah, they do have, you know, when you see the wolves, so to speak, they have no interest in peace with the humans. They just want to kill everybody. But that being said, you know that they are the way they are because the humans basically have just come and destroyed everything for what the animals see as no bloody good reason. So you still kind of lean towards the animal side. It's, I mean, there's a reason the film is called Princess Mononoke. It's because she is representing the animals. That's sort of the side of beauty and nature. And Lady Eboshi is just a little bit less likable than San is. It's just hard. It's hard to like her. Even though San, of course, is very childish, she's obviously representing the animals and what you could be as a human if you lived alongside them. So you're kind of seeing a kind of stepwise progression. San is if you were fully engrossed with the animals. Ashitaka is someone who comes from a people who are kind of keeping to themselves, living traditionally, living peacefully alongside nature. And then you have Lady Eboshi, who is full-blown just progress for the sake of progress. I take care of my people, nothing else matters. So there's Ashitaku's sort of trying to maintain balance, San, who believes in the purely naturalistic way of living, and then there's Eboshi, who's a little shit. I can't like her, people. I just can't. She's just so, you know, I can't like her. I should try, but I can't. So I'm trying not to get too much into spoilers here, but I would definitely recommend watching this film. If you are someone who has not gotten into anime or animation in general, this is the kind of film which deals with such serious topics that you can forget that it's an animation and just really enjoy the characters and the story and the world and just this kind of philosophical discussion on what it means to be human and live alongside nature and be kind to it while also trying to progress as a species. And let's face it, there's some phenomenal action in this comparatively to anyone who's watched Ghibli films before this, like the even earlier films before Princess Mononoke. There was really not much violence. You could see some fighting, but not really much. There were some brutal scenes in this series. When Ashitaka first gets into a conflict with some ronin or samurai who are attacking a village, he shoots his bow and the curse arm sort of overpowers him, and he shoots and he literally blows the arms off of someone into a tree, and I remember being so surprised and overwhelmed by this moment in the film when I first watched it, because it really came out of nowhere and it was really well done. um, there's some crazy scary moments, kind of freaky moments at the beginning of the film when you see, such as the boar god first attacking Ashitaka's village, and he is in full demon mode with these just scary red eyes, and he's coming down, and it's just and it freaks you out. And so there's a lot of good action, a lot of good sort of suspenseful moments in this film, and there's a lot of beautiful moments, such as when they first meet the deer god, and when they God, there's so many. The transition between the deer god's day form and night form, the conflict at the end of the film and the deer god's night form just sort of going out of control. It just goes on, and of course we must not forget the cute little bobble-headed spirits with these little cute little bums, and they keep going. And just, at the end of the day, I find this film is worth watching just for Ashitaka. I just find he's such a phenomenal example of sort of an ideal male for me. It's just that calmness, that willingness to shut up, listen, hear both sides, say what you really think and feel, let people know what's right and what's wrong, and yet try to find a balance towards everything. And he's just so badass. Again, I've seen so many overpowered anime characters. They all have abilities and magical powers and whatnot. And so Ashitaka has his little curse arm, which helps him a little bit. But overall, he's just got some wicked scenes of just full badassery. There's one scene where he gets shot right through the goddamn chest, and he just nothing, just keeps on walking, and then opens up a whole gate with one arm, and it is masterpiece, my friends. And so I'm gonna keep it there. I'm gonna stop it there. We're at 17 minutes, and this could keep going. I could keep gushing, but like I said, there are some criticisms. It's not a perfect film. It's a little bit too short. It needed more development. I personally think this should have been made into a TV series, because the world, the conflict, everything is so fascinating. It could have been fleshed out so much more. The relationship between Ashitaka and San, everything could have been fleshed out immensely more, at least into multiple films or a TV series. But Ghibli doesn't do that because they hate us. Ghibli hates us. They literally just want to torture us with one film after another, beautiful worlds, and then they just walk away and leave us pining for more. Damn it, Ghibli. Thanks for tuning in, people. Like, comment, subscribe, check out the website geektales.ca, and I hope you enjoyed this thing I'm doing.